Next guests entering the studio. Jay, you want to do the honors?
Sure.
Well, actually, it's one guest and one, as she said, roadie here to support her appearance on the show.
And it's Judy Bachmann, and she is in from the Citizens Equal Rights Alliance, or CERA. And she's got a presentation coming up here over the weekend on a public forum on federal Indian policy. And I know Judy has been fighting the good fight here for quite some time, and she's going to give us a little information on what's going to take place over the weekend.
Well, I have some people coming in, and I hope the storm doesn't hit too soon in Washington, because our legal advisor is in Washington this morning in the Supreme Court listening to a couple of arguments regarding federal Indian policy. And then she's coming up here. She's going to Massachusetts and work with some people there, and then she's coming here to New York. She's fantastic, and I would invite everybody and anybody who has any questions or any ideas, any thoughts, whether you agree with us or not. Stop over. Listen. I never ask people to change their mind. I only ask them to listen.
And what is going to be the focus, I guess?
I think the focus will essentially be the legal cases and where we stand. And there's 5 Supreme Court cases this term that will be heard that are going to have a bearing on the federal government's application of their Indian policy on us here in Oneida and Madison County, and how we expect that to affect us.
And what is the take from so far that you're hearing from your legal advisor from Washington?
She's from Arizona.
Okay.
Okay, I'm there. She's flying in. She's from Arizona. I'm also bringing in the vice chairman of Citizens Equal Rights Alliance, Butch Cranford from California. Carol Kelly will be coming from Massachusetts. Carol is one of the 16 from Salamanca that the federal government took their homes away from them.
So this is a national group.
This is a national organization. My board of directors comes from 12 different states, and we represent federal Indian policy and its application. It has an application in many different areas across the United States, and what is applied here may not necessarily be what we see in Wisconsin and Minnesota and South Dakota and California, and it's a widespread problem. It's not a local problem.
And you'll be discussing not just the case swirling around us here, but also, it says here, 5 cases.
5 cases before the Supreme Court of the United States this term. One was already argued, the Dollar General store, which involved sexual harassment in tribal courts. And that was an extremely interesting transcript to read, in that it got into the actual due process. And what our local case here is including is the right of due process that people don't have when tribal governments are allowed to establish tribal courts that take non-tribal people into court. And the argument that's being argued this morning at 10 o'clock, we have people in Nebraska who are involved in that issue. The tribe claims that this reservation was not disestablished. Does that sound familiar to anybody here in this area? And we have an amicus brief filed in that case. We're extremely happy with that, because we've found, by we, you have to understand that being a national organization, we have a board of directors that's very knowledgeable, and we go into the archives in Washington, D.C., in the Library of Congress, and into the various colleges that have documents that are released and do research. And our research has found the actual intention of Congress to disestablish that part of the reservation, and that's before the Supreme Court this morning.
Interesting. My wife and I went into the archives, the National Archives in Washington, D.C. Powerful building, and you can learn a lot about a lot of different topics there. If folks want to go there, if you're going to be in Washington on vacation, we recommend it highly. We're talking with Judy Bachmann, a public forum on federal Indian policy coming to our area here, and it's 100.7 FM WUTQ on your radio. And if you want to go in person, give us the details about this meeting.
VVS Auditorium. VVS is the main high school on Route 31. It's easily accessible either from the Thruway or from Route 5. It's the actual forum will begin at 5 o'clock. It'll run for 2 hours. Butch will speak. Lana will do the majority of the speaking. We'll have an area where questions can be asked, and we will answer them to the best of our ability. We're also doing an additional one on Monday night at the Canastota Public Library. So we're trying to cover an area that really needs to be discussed here. We've filed, we being one of the only 3 groups left that are fighting the fee to trust issue here in this area. And it's coming in from 3 different areas of the law. And Citizens Equal Rights Alliance actually has a constitutional challenge involved in our case, which will be moving forward to the Second Circuit.
All right, again, it's the meeting coming up at VVS Sunday at 5, and then Canastota is Monday evening at what time?
6.
At 6. Judy, how long have you had an interest in these types of cases?
I started following it in 1994. My parents were ill, and I couldn't really get deeply involved in it until 2000. I joined Citizens Equal Rights Alliance in 2002. Was put on their board in 2003 and became the chairman, I think, in maybe 2005 or 2006. So it's been a long time. It's been a lot of court cases. I've been down to the Supreme Court to hear the arguments twice. I wanted to go hear the Nebraska case, but I could only get 1 ticket. You have to write the clerk of the court and ask for tickets, and usually they'll give me 2 or 3, and I get to go. I've been twice, but this time I could only get 1. So our legal advisor from Arizona is going to listen to this case since we've got the amicus brief in on this case.
And Judy, since then, I know you've been on top of many different situations that have affected Oneida and Madison County in regards to the policies that are in place. I know something more current that you've kind of been fighting for and you have thoughts on, and coming out yesterday, the Oneida Indian Nation now suing folks in the Gaming Commission over their decision to end their placement for casino licenses, one in Tyre. I know that you also have some maps placed out, and you feel that that it clearly shows where the outlines and the borders are for where the licensing and gaming should be placed in the
When
state.
the settlement agreement first came down, of course, I objected highly to it because it withdrew all of the court wins that we had done through the years. I don't know how you can remove court, but that's another story. Yes, and I found it extremely confusing with the setup of who had jurisdictional control where.
I agree.
So I sat down and pulled a map of New York State that showed the counties and colored in the different areas that were under the control of the different tribes. And I found it extremely interesting that there was a tiny little narrow strip that goes between the Oneidas and the Senecas, and it was considered a free area for the state to put casinos in. I found it interesting because it was the only part of the border between New York State and Canada that the tribes didn't have exclusivity on the gaming, so it was certainly going to draw from Canada. But as near as I can figure, the Tyre Casino is in that little green strip. Somebody had an idea that they wanted a casino in that area between the Oneidas and the Senecas. I'm not sure where it came from, but on my colored map, it's very, very clear that there is an area that was agreed to. The Oneidas agreed to this, the Senecas agreed to it, and in addition to that, when the settlement came out, the Cayugas filed to be taken out of that settlement agreement for their area to not be part of under the control of the Oneidas. I sat in court and listened to the attorney for the Cayugas, felt he was definitely going to win his case, and the next thing we knew, there was a agreement between the Cayugas and the Oneidas for that area to also be removed. So it's not just the little narrow strip that they're referring to, but it's the area that the Cayugas also removed from the control of the Oneidas for the control of the gambling. So I find it very interesting that now everybody is saying, oh, well, they're not going with the original agreement. The way I read the original agreement, this was planned.
Maybe a little bit of politics taking place in play there, huh?
You said that. I can only agree.
I did. I said it. There you go,
Judy. Best of luck with the forums coming up both at VVS and at Canastota.
I would like to say it's free of charge. None of our people get paid. I don't have a paid position on this. This, as long as our Social Security check holds up, we're off and running. I thank you very much for your time, and I would invite everybody, whether you think you agree with us or not, you need to come and see what we're really saying.
Great. Thanks for coming in,
Judy.
and I wouldn't mess with your strapping bodyguard over here.